I'm going to share my screen. So howdy, I am Lei, the CVA, the Community Volunteer Ambassador for the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. So I'm going to go ahead and read our general consent statement. As a visible disclosure, we'd like to inform any participants that any and all Zoom series is and will be recorded. The purpose of this is to provide the Zoom series to those who participated or missed out on the session. It is also provided the information for participants to refer back to. In addition to the visible disclosure, this statement will be orally stated at the beginning of each Zoom series, like I am right now. And I'm going to stop sharing and hand it off to our guest speaker today to introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, Ken Lowe here. Most of you know me. I've been working at the park for 28 years. I switched over from interpretation to law enforcement, well, visitor and resource protection 4 years ago. And part of visitor resource protection is the special park uses, part law enforcement, part fire. So I'm a half law enforcement ranger and half special park uses ranger. And so can't believe all of you joined today to listen to special park uses. Maybe not the funnest topic, but something that we at this park do and take special pride in. I have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm gonna get on that. Let's see here. Hold on. Is it sharing? Do you see my PowerPoint?
No.
Okay, hold on. I had it up a second ago.
There
How about
we go.
now?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so here's our team. The supervisor is Preston DeCourt. Then we have Denise Forrester. And there's me in the back of our electric, or in the driver's seat of the electric vehicle. Our team handles special use permits and commercial use authorizations. We'll talk more about each of those. Sometimes people call in and ask about research permits, like I want to go collect these crickets for studies on their adaptability to something. Well, that goes to a different department. That goes to our resource management department. There's a few other things that might fall under special use permits. There's a large category of things like rights of ways, easements, things like that. We handle a few of those as well. So what is a special park use? It's an activity that takes place in the park and that provides a benefit to an individual, group, or organization rather than the public at large. So when I tell people what they're doing, they need a permit, I'll usually say, what you're doing is not normally what a visitor would do in the park if they're just coming out to enjoy their visit. It's also something that requires a written authorization and some degree of management in order to protect the resources. It's something that is not prohibited by law or regulation. And it's not initiated by us or sponsored by us. So if we want to host an event, let's say if we want to bring back Scaramount and we sponsored it, we initiate the activity or the event, then we don't need to do a special park use for that. And it's something not managed under a concession contract. Like say if you look over at Yosemite, they have a pizza parlor inside the park. So that would be a concessions contract. Now, commercial use authorization, we sometimes say that's a permit. It is kind of a permit, but we call it a CUA for short. That's something for an individual, group, or company, or someone that's providing some commercial services in the park. And if you have any good activity or service and you're getting any type of compensation, monetary gain or benefit or profit, then you'll need a CUA. We do have a mission statement. We do try to bring small businesses and of different community to the park through these special park uses and through the CUA program, people that normally wouldn't come to visit. Let's say people want to go on a horseback ride. So we have a small business, the Malibu Riders, and we offer something that normally a visitor who doesn't have a horse can do in the park through this CUA program. So big question is, let's say a person comes up to you and says, I want to do this. So would they need a permit? So what do you guys think? I want to take pictures of my son who is graduating from college in the park. Does that need a permit?
No.
No, you're correct. I want to take pictures of my son who will be modeling clothing for an advertisement company for my company.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes, and we'll get more into that. Sometimes it's a big gray area that we deal with, and sometimes we have to kind of confer with each other on the different regulations and laws, but this one will require a permit. So in the second one, that person is modeling clothing for a company. So a model is not just a person, it could be the article of clothing as well. And it's using to promote or the sale of a product or a service. So if they're photographing that for the purpose of that, then they would need a permit. So we use the term when we're dealing with photographers out there. Do we have a, we're thinking in our minds, do we have a model, a prop, or a set, or is that person benefiting from it? So this one will require a special use permit, not a commercial use authorization, which I'll go over later. So we also have the sets and props. So anything other than tripod, camera, maybe a reflector will raise us to start asking more questions. What do they have? So do they have other materials used for the purposes that fall under sets and props? So here's some examples I'll show you of special use permits. One is filming. These are pictures from Westworld. The chapel survived the Woolsey fire, but ironically, as soon as the fire went through, we allowed filming. The film production company wanted to show the chapel as a burned chapel for one of their episodes. So they went back, made it look burnt, and I kid you not, I had someone come into the park and started crying because the chapel had burnt during the Woolsey fire. I told them, nope, they just made it look burnt. So there's still photography, and that's where we talk about also the use of model sets and props that requires a permit, and filming, which also requires a permit if it's commercial. Student films also usually requires a permit, but if it's non-commercial, non-student film, and you're not really using the definitions of model sets and props, like you're not advertising something, then some filming is actually allowed without a permit. The first top picture is me monitoring a permit in Cheeseboro Canyon. They're blocking the trail there, but my job is to monitor and allow visitors to pass through because there is no exclusive use of the park. And the picture below is of Escape the Night, where we made Western Town into a carnival scene. So there's a location fee that we charge along with filming, and I'm going to talk about all the fees we charge because that's a big mystery. This location fee is mandated by the Washington office, and we have no leeway in changing any of that. And it's for still photography with the model sets and props and commercial filming, but not for student filming. So a student film needs to turn in a letter to us from the university or the college, and then we'll waive that fee. A lot of people ask about drones. Are drones allowed for filming? What do you guys think?
Probably.
Anyone else?
I think no.
No.
I wish it was, because that's a new thing that's becoming so much more popular in the art of filming, and it really enhances the filmmaker's production. But there's been a recent cease order on the use of unmanned aircraft due to security reasons. And so only for emergency purposes, let's say if there's a fire or rescue or something like that, can we do something like that. But for filming, we can't do it. The first picture above was from an art installation we did. And this was inside one of the Western Town buildings. and the picture below is of a Range Rover car show. But the NPS, if you think the first picture is could be a little offensive, the NPS, we're supposed to be content neutral, but we have to take into consideration that the park is still a public place. So the pictures like we have there were inside buildings, and then we had a little note outside the buildings of warning visitors in the outside public space of what they would see if they were to go in. Weddings are popular. Weddings are not part of the First Amendment rights. And there's trail runs. Picture above is from the Great Race of Agoura, where we normally get at least, I think, about 2,000 runners going through Cheeseboro Canyon. And the one below was probably the Holiday Trail Race at Paramount. Many of the trail races, because they go over long distances, may go over many other agency properties. So we'll just request from them the other agencies' permits as well, just so that we're not broadsiding another agency by us writing a permit and them not getting one on theirs. And festivals, one of the funnest things we have in the park, mainly because we can go out there and buy things. When something is sold at a festival, which is a special event, the selling of items needs a commercial use authorization. So we will usually write a commercial use authorization for each vendor that's selling something. You can see the rangers in the left picture below. They're talking to one of the vendors. What we're doing there is checking in all the commercial use authorizations to make sure that they're not selling anything that's prohibited. So anything that's like a bare rock that could be possibly collected off any of our public lands and just sold as is, that's not part of an art, would be prohibited. And any endangered species or migratory bird parts are prohibited as well. So one time I saw someone, I think he was selling abalone shells, plain, not part of artwork. I told him he had to pack that away. And then we also had a person selling bare gems and minerals. So we had to tell them to put that away. So demystifying the permit process, how does it work? So an inquiry usually comes into us from our phone, our email, or from the interpretive staff forwarding it over to us, saying, I want to do this. We say, fill out an application on the website. Let's see if I can go. Is my Explorer window popping up for you guys?
No.
You have to
No?
reshare it. You have to like.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'll do it afterwards then. All right, so. Okay, if we think the request is feasible, let's say I just want to hold a special event out here, or I just want to film something, then we check the dates on our calendar, see if there's any interpreter program going on, because that will take precedence. Any other activity that the park has going on. And if nothing's going on, then we'll assign them a permit number. For example, X010. The letter stands for the year that we're in. So this fiscal year we're in X, next year we'll go into Y, and so forth. Don't ask me what comes after Z. Then the permittee will go to a pay.gov site, and we'll give them the link, and they'll pay a $175 application fee. That sets them up, locks down the date for them. And depending on the type of special use permit or the commercial use authorization, we will ask for additional information. So what kind of information are we looking for? Let's say someone's having a wedding. Tell me what type of information you would want to know from the standpoint of the Park Service, so that a wedding can go off without damaging the resource, and also mitigation for anything safety-wise or for the visiting public.
Date, time, and
Number
where?
of guests.
Date, time, and where would be on the application. Guests would be on the application as well. What else?
Number of guests.
Number of guests. Number of guests might determine how many monitors we might need. Anything else?
Can a couple of people writing in, yeah, number of guests, parking issues, music, food, will there be alcohol, musicians?
Very good. So the food, yep, we write that into the permit, who the caterer is going to be. If there's alcohol, so that will be part of the reception. Music, then we'll write in there what our decibel limit is to not offend the visiting public as well. Anything that has to do with fire. So when we say cooking, is there going to be a grill? Is it going to be catered in a sealed truck? If it's a barbecue, okay, where are we going to put that? How are we going to mitigate fires? So we got to source it either near a water spigot or have fire extinguishers. Have a parking plan. I usually ask for a parking attendant. And so when there's a lot of questions like this, if I may ask them in an email to send me all those answers, or we may do what's called a walkthrough. I'll go out there with the wedding party. I'll charge them for my time out there if I need to, and then we'll go through all these items and walk through the whole set area of where they're going to be and talk about all these issues.
So
How about a trail?
a couple more, you kind of spoke to the setup, and then decorations and lighting were also mentioned.
Correct. For decorations, usually we put in the permit that you can't tack anything over our signs, can't use any nails. You can tape stuff up, string stuff up, but everything has to be removed. Those are all perfect, all things we would ask. And so almost every time people are pretty darn flexible. And so, another example for a wedding is the flowers that people bring in. We want to make sure that nothing is in seeding form. Everything has to be in flower form so that we don't get any non-native seeds. And then they can't throw confetti. Anything they want to throw, like rose petals or lay them down, they have to be able to pick up by hand. How about a trail run? What questions or additional information would you want on a trail run besides the number of people?
The routing?
The trail route, So we'll ask for a map. What else? Think about the safety of the runners.
There's some things coming in: parking, water stations, street crossings, number of participants, no off trail.
Perfect. For the water stations, we'll ask where they are. We'll ask how you're going to get there and how is the water going to get there, because it's heavy. So sometimes we actually have to go out there with our truck and help them drop things off. We're not supposed to be for hire. They're supposed to do everything, but sometimes we'll do it just because I don't want another visitor vehicle on a fire road. The spacing between the water stations has to be appropriate for runner safety. The crossings of the roads, we'll have them contact CHP or the local sheriff department and advise them what they're doing. And off trail, when we look at the map, done many times where they will put down closed trails. And so we'll say, reroute, this one's closed. Here's your open trails, pick a different area. And so there's banter back and forth. And once we get it all right, then we'll have them sign the permit. The other thing besides that, is there anything more that came in?
Yeah, there are a couple other things. There's porta potties, of course. And then there's a question about emergency response plan and medical staff. So I'm marking the routes.
Yeah, everyone's got it perfect. That's one thing we ask is for a medical plan. Depending upon the number of runners we have, we'll mandate a number of EMTs at certain areas. The Great Race of Agura is one that is a well-oiled machine where with 2,000 people running through the park, a number of things can happen. So we have them do a communications plan. We have several meetings beforehand with the different agencies involved. The spacing and location of the EMTs, and when we don't have EMTs, spacing of the first aid people. It's all very important so that we maintain a safe event.
Well, one other thing that came up was a question on, let me get the wording straight. Is there a supervisory ranger there during the event? And I said that typically there is a park ranger during special events, but you can address that much better than I can on when we would have a ranger versus when we wouldn't for permitted activities.
Did you say a supervisor or a monitor or what?
Well, it said a supervisory ranger, but I basically a monitor or a park person there to make sure that everything is in adherence.
Yeah, almost all the time. Let's say a wedding, a trail run, and even a festival. We pick the monitors and we pick the lead monitor, and that lead monitor may not be a supervisor, and we may not have a supervisor on hand. Usually on a weekend, there is a law enforcement supervisor, or there may be an interpretive supervisor on duty, but they're not usually the lead monitor. It'd be probably the person with the most experience being the lead, and they have the delegated authority to make all the calls. If we have a problem, sometimes we'll call in a supervisor, but usually we can handle everything. Anything else?
Nope, that's it so far.
Okay. So a festival would include a lot of things that we just talked about: a safety plan, porta potty plan, parking plan, health and safety. This one usually involves more commercial use authorizations for like Topanga Banjo and Fiddle Contest. We'll usually have about 50 vendors out there. So we'll write 50 commercial use authorizations as well as the main permit for the festival. And so for Topanga Banjo and Fiddle Contest, besides writing the permit, they will also sell t-shirts. And so they will also get a commercial use authorization as well. Filming and still photography, what kind of questions will we ask for that one as additional information? Anything in particular? Sometimes we don't ask, but they'll kind of bounce around and say, you know what, we got some highly important talent coming out. And in my time here, we've had really big talent and no one really cares. It's like they're fearing paparazzi. So I was out with the Kardashians last month. Of course, you may not see them as maybe highly popular, but no one cared. Hikers were walking by them. They didn't notice. But as far as other things,
there are a few comments that came in: special effects, props. Would you allow smoking? Number and type of vehicles, and set dressing.
Very good. So special effects, we'll ask them what they're doing, and then let's say if they're doing stunts, then we'll need a stunt coordinator. If they're doing fake guns, we won't try and think if we've done any real guns. I think I've had real guns out there before on some things, and then we have a prop master for some items and an armorer for the real guns. And so all depends upon the level of what they're bringing out. I need a higher level person to do something. We'll also go out there and check, make sure that whatever they have is non-firing, or whatever they have in there is blanks. For smoking, we designate a smoking spot, and anything that may give the appearance of smoke, such as real fire, smoke machine. Besides having a fire safety advisor or a fire safety officer out there as required by the county, we'll also let our dispatch know in case a visitor is walking and sees anything that's out of the ordinary to them. If they can't see that, it's actually a film production. Number of vehicles, it's like where to put these things. So I'll have a film production going on November 6th and 7th, I think. And so we'll have some vehicles in the back of Paramount. So I need to know the number of what I can fit comfortably back there. And then also the size of vehicles, whether or not they're bringing cranes or anything like that, like you saw in the picture for Westworld. So seeing whether or not they're exceeding any limits for safety across our bridges or anything else like that. And set dressings, we don't have to deal with set dressing except for at Paramount Ranch usually, but we allow them because that area was historically used for filming. And so there's a lot more leeway in what they could have done back there when we had the buildings. But we set the limits on what they can and can't do. All right, anything else that came in?
One person said, and don't park under our trees.
Yeah, so we'll also put in the permit, they have to stay out of the drip line of the oak trees. So that's another good one. So we'll just ask them all these questions, and then we'll come back and write the permit tailored to each individual film production of what they're going to do. All right.
And one other thing, constructing new sets.
Sure, constructing sets. I remember when we did Escape the Night, they wanted to build a couple different things. They're wondering whether or not to build a big circus tent. And so we had to make sure it's structurally safe for them to work in. Is there archaeological resources that's under there? Something large, they would usually need to stake in the ground. We usually don't allow any staking deeper than 6 inches. Anything that has to be cleared of vegetation, we have to think about. So we'll pull in resource advisors as well from the park. So we'll pull in plant specialists, archaeologists as well, if we need to do any type of modification to the ground to support the set construction. Okay, once we gather everything, then we have to look at all the laws. There's a lot of different manuals that we have to read or look at for reference. The Code of Federal Regulations, 36 CFR, 43 CFR, which is public lands of the Department of Interior, 54 United States Code, Management Policy 2006, Superintendent's Compendium, and if you can believe it or not, the list of regulations goes on besides that. We also have to think about, our park is pretty diverse. We've had a long history of pretty much doing everything everywhere in our recreation area. But in a lot of parks, they might not do as much filming or special events as us. And so we really have to look at a reason why a park was created and the activity that the people want to do and whether or not we should allow it. So what do you guys think? Someone approaches us and says, we want to do a Pocahontas costume birthday party at Satwewa. Would you guys allow that or not allow that?
Yes.
Might create a problem. That probably need more information.
More information would be 28-year-olds dressing up as Pocahontas characters and just a birthday party running around in the op and maybe doing some performances from in front of each other.
So a couple of things that came in, somebody said yes. Another person, a couple of people said no. Somebody said, if no, why not? And then somebody said, maybe rename it to Chumash Party.
Yeah. So we have to think of precedents. If we allow something that's questionable like this, does it set a precedence? Now, we have to think about why the park was created or its history of Satwiwa, and that's set aside for all Native Americans, and how would the community feel about that? But also, again, we don't censor content. We're supposed to be content neutral. So I just wanted to show you some things that may come into our office that's really not kind of cut and dry. So, and what we try to do is like what someone just said is like, we may want to rename this. So we had a run there called the Hiawatha Trail Run through Satwiwa. And I told her that the name might be a little offensive. And when she told me the history and everything behind it, and I forgot whether or not she put that little history in the website for her trail run, it all seemed okay. And so we left the name and we didn't have any problems with that.
So what is the answer to the Pocahontas costume birthday party?
I'll probably say what Jim Ford did. It's like, I want more information. So this is just a theoretical. I never had one. I just thought I'd throw something out there for us to discuss. So we look for mitigations. Most of the time I have problems with people who want to do something on a weekend where we don't have any parking. So let's say we wanted a 100-person event that needs to park 50 cars at Rancho Sierra Vista on a weekend. Then I have to find some sort of mitigation, like can you do shuttles from somewhere? Things like that. So if there's something that flags me on something that's going to affect our regular visitation, someone's healthy, safety, or our resources, then we'll have to work it out together before we finalize the permit. Then we ask for insurance. I'm trying to think of a time. In my 4 years, I don't think we've ever sought any damages through a person's insurance, but almost always we ask for a certificate of insurance named the United States government as additionally insured for at least $1 million. And then the final payment is made on pay.gov once we do the cost recovery, which we're going to go over next. Okay, so we can't make a profit on special use permits. We do cost recovery. So we have to think about everything involved. So my time looking at a permit, my time writing the permit, my time going back and forth on the emails, my time monitoring, my transportation back and forth. So there's $175 non-refundable application fee. And then if it's a simple event where we just need one person to monitor, the rate is $60 an hour from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock and $100 an hour anytime outside of that, or anytime past 8 hours is $100 an hour. We add on travel time, and most of the time it's if we have to go to Paramount Ranch or Rancho Sierra Vista or Cheeseboro Canyon, we put that as 1 hour travel time, 30 minutes up, 30 minutes back. And then if one of us in the team is not available, then we'll ask anyone else that has monitored before to come on duty on overtime, and that overtime rate is $100 an hour. So let's see, complex permits, film permits that need a lot of going back and forth and need a lot more clarification in the permits. I might add an extra hour or two. If something hasn't been done before and we need archaeologists to come out or plant specialists to come out, we tack on those hours, or conducting a walkthrough if we need more clarification. So I'm going to give you how we do some calculations, but you can kind of give people a ballpark saying how much an hour it is, but it's up to us, our office, to kind of make that final cost analysis, because we may determine that there may be 2 monitors out there and that whole cost might be double. So let's look at this.
Before you go on, just so people don't think that Park Service people are making $100 an hour.
Oh yeah, very good. How we come up with that time?
Yeah.
So my supervisor is GS11. I'm a GS9, but I'm just taking a wild guess that I might make more than my supervisor because I've been in the Park Service for so long. They have to take into account my benefits. So the health benefit. So besides my hourly wage, there's benefits that the government has to pay to me, such as my health benefits and my retirement benefits. And so all that is taken into account. And whenever you say it's like, oh, it's going to be like 1 hour to kind of do the travel time. No, just getting my car ready, getting all the supplies necessary. Got to make sure that I got enough the trash bags in order. There's always more time needed, but we just have to kind of round it out to kind of make it nice and even. So 60 covers all that other stuff that I just talked about, and $100 an hour covers that overtime plus all my benefits as well. Did that clarify?
Yeah, thank you, Ken.
Yeah. $100 an hour would be nice.
Yeah. I'm like, where do I get that job?
Okay, so now that you know how much we charge, let's see you guys do some math. Let's say someone wants to have a wedding, 100 people. The set of people are going to arrive at 9 o'clock. The event takes place at 12. And then the takedown, the last car leaves at 3 p.m. So essentially, they're going to be out there from 9 to 3, 6 hours. How much will we charge them?
How many people do you need to run the event?
What do you guys think? 100 people? Wedding? Paramount Ranch? It's all tight in one little area. I think one monitor.
So some people are saying $1,000. Another person said $360.
This is where, yeah, when I first started doing this, I was really confused because we used to, besides the $60 an hour and $100 an hour, there was all these miscellaneous charges of, so I forgot to say on that 60 and 100, sometimes like we let them use our dumpster. We have to pay for the dumpster. Trash bags, things like that. There's little things sometimes, electricity that we pay for, water that we pay for, utilities. And so here, was there any more numbers out there?
$1,000, $500. So it ranges pretty much from $360 to $1,000. Somebody said $650.
Okay, can you imagine if they asked each one of us on the special park uses team how much it would cost, and we gave them each a different answer. So here's my math, and hopefully all the rest of my partners on the team would have the same answer. So you got 6 hours. Their event is from 9 to 3, essentially when the first person arrives. So that's when I have to be there. I have an hour of travel time to Paramount Ranch, half an hour up, half an hour back. And there's a $175 non-refundable application fee. So I got $595. So the person who came up with $650 probably came up the closest. So that's how I do my math. And so we have a sheet, an Excel sheet that we use. And so we usually fill that out and file that with their application that they turn in, so that if they come back to us and say, hey, how'd you come up with this? We just look at that and say, oh, here's what we charged you. Any questions on that? No? Okay. I'm going to jump back over to commercial photography and still photography. There's a separate charge, and they have to pay this separately to a different account. The money that goes to this account, we can only spend in certain ways. And I think it's fee demonstration money where 80% of this money stays in our park and 20% goes to other parks. And so for still photography, what we charge them besides the cost recovery fee that we just kind of talked about is listed on the top, and then commercial filming is listed below. So what's very important for me to know is how many people. So we had commercial filming last month at Circle X Ranch, and they lied to us on how many people they had. So I had to come back. They said 11 to 30 people. I think they said 28 or 30 people. So we charged them $250 a day, and they actually had 40 people. So I told them that they owe me another $250, and they paid it. The permit addresses the most things you can and can't do. They're usually around 6 to 8 pages long. When it's good for. So if we ask for a permit, make sure you check the dates. It's signed by the permittee and then signed by us. So we send it to them for signature. If they agree to everything, comes back to us. We do the final signature and mail it or email it back to them. Monitoring, what I do a lot. Got to be prepared for long hours. So let's say they said the wedding was from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I've been on a permit wedding one time where they went, I believe, 3 hours over, and it was already a 12-hour wedding. So that was a long one. It went into 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. You have to know all your laws and regulations and policies, or know where to find them. And you have to balance out the regular visiting public coming and enjoying the parks, because that takes higher precedence. All right, commercial use authorization, something just a tad bit different. So when we talk about still photography, that's something that uses models, props, and sets. This is portrait photography I'm showing in the picture above, where someone is actually not using a model or prop or set by definition, but someone, usually a photographer or business, that's making money or getting some benefit from doing these photographs. So if anyone has any compensation, monetary gain, benefit, or profit, they're supposed to have a CUA. Liability insurance is mandatory here on the special use permits. It's usually asked for, but it's not a mandatory thing. The application fee for this is $175, and usually this covers everything for simple permits such as photographers. The picture on the lower left is of Malibu Riders, because that's a bigger CUA. There's a lot more things that can go wrong, a lot more managing. We charge them a lot more than the $175. The events that we talked about, festivals like the Topanga Banjo Fiddle Contest, because those holders are only coming out and doing a one-day event, we charge them $50 for the day. Once we mail out a CUA, we ask for all the people that may be working for that business. And these are people that do it for a year. And we usually give them a hang tag, and we change the color every year. And this hang tag, we ask them to wear it so that we can approach them from a distance and see that they have that and not actually bother them while they're conducting business. All right, any questions?
There was one question that just came in. If a wedding party, because you talked about that wedding party going until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
If a wedding party does not adhere to the time frame, is it not enforceable?
So that wedding party was supposed to end at 11, and physically I tried to make them move as fast as they could, and they moved as fast as they could, but they couldn't pack everything into their U-Haul and take down all the sets and decorations. And so we're all working hard together, but it just went over. And so I just told them, it's just going to be $100 an hour past this time until you get out of here. So I just stayed until, but I cannot exceed 16 hours. So I was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I had to lock the place down, and I don't remember that day if I was going past my 16 or not to do it. Because I'm not going to call anyone at 1 o'clock in the morning saying, get ready, it's going to be a long one. So there's not much more restitution I can get, because we're not supposed to make a profit. I can't just say, hey, you owe me like $200 an hour past this point. So, but people are supposed to be able to change things, but they have to do in advance. But we as the monitor have a lot of leeway on what we can do on site. So.
Somebody else asked, what permits are being granted now given the current Los Angeles County and Ventura County restrictions with COVID?
Very great question. So we just, I think, updated it yesterday on our website, the COVID restrictions. And so LA County has something a little different than Ventura County for businesses. So for all of our commercial use authorizations, we have a limit. And I think it's either 8 or 10 people. I think it was eight people at a time they can bring out. And then they have to have a COVID plan. But there's no good COVID plan for a business such as a photography company coming out. So we tried to find the next best thing, which was like if you own a museum or an outdoor museum, and then there's a plan saying how often you're going to sanitize this, what are your mitigations for face masks and distancing. And so they have to fill that COVID form out, send it back into us, and they have to fill an attestation out saying that they're opening up their business back for Ventura County. For LA County, we have them look over the whole website and read a couple things. One is reopening trails, how to behave on trails. And for filming, there's a big 8-page thing that they have to fill out, turn back into us and carry while they're out there. Filming, they can actually have a lot more people. I forgot the exact number, but they can do a lot more, but they have a lot more rules to follow as well. And so in the permit now, we just copied over a big section for Ventura County and LA County on the restrictions. But we fall in a weird position being the Park Service because there's no federal mandate on wearing masks or social distancing. So we asked them to do everything that the county asked for, but be advised that the county may come and inspect them, but we just try to put it all down there, but I don't enforce any of those because they are not part of federal law.
Okay. Another question was when some of the volunteers are, or when the volunteers are back in the field and happen into something that looks like it should require a permit, who do they contact?
They contact dispatch, and then dispatch will call one of us. And if normally dispatch will call a law enforcement ranger, but if I hear it on the radio, it's probably more appropriate for me to go and contact them. Unless it's some illegal activity that's beyond a special use permit need, like having a gun while trying to do a film. I would say, okay, I'm going to leave that one to law enforcement. Back on that one.
I will tell everyone that we are down to 2 law enforcement field rangers. So if they're not like Johnny on the spot, just be patient. They have a priority list of things to do. But another question just came in.
Okay.
Is section 47 still in there? Will I ever be able to photograph production again?
I see Carrie wrote that. What is section 47, Carrie? Do you know that, Sarah? Section 47?
No.
That would be the National Park Service reserves the right to photograph production activity in the park.
Oh, 47 in the permit?
Yes.
That number changes depending upon how many other things we have. We usually keep that in there because we take photographs as well. It's just, I just do it for documentation purposes, and they're just really crappy pictures compared to what you shoot. But if we're ever allowed to photograph again, yeah, we're still sticking that in there. So I took some photos from a Hyundai commercial the other day. I got a picture of the new Hyundai SUV.
So do rock climbers need a permit?
If it's a company doing business, so if they're guiding and they're profiting somehow, then yes. And so we had one that applied to us right before COVID, and then COVID happened, and so we haven't heard anything since from them. But if I want to show someone how to rock climb, and it's just me and my buddies, no, I don't need it.
Here's an interesting question for you. Somebody gave me a book. It's not from this national park, but it's a book of photographs of horses, wild. I'm not going to get in that conversation, but they said wild horses, and it was in a national park site. If there was no mention of permission from the National Park Service in their list of things and things like that, can someone take just personal photos and then a few years later, because it sounded like this took several years for them to do, several years later, make a book and sell it and not have NPS permission or a permit to do that?
From what I heard in my training, the answer is yes. And we didn't talk about horses in particular, but it's more landscape photography. So in landscape photography, we're just kind of ignoring that because at that moment they don't have anything that's model sets and props. That's for commercial gain right then and there. So.
Okay, good to know.
Gives me an idea. I think I'm going to publish a Backbone Trail photograph book.
Ah.
But all the photographs were taken on NPS time.
Well, but
not necessarily. I hike out there a lot on my own. So.
Yeah, then that's perfect then. We just have to articulate that.
And make sure nobody in uniform is in the pictures.
Yeah, so also on like the permit, if anyone wants to see a sample permit, we can send one out to everyone as well. I kind of made a couple of blank permits for another park where I just stripped out all the PII in there. And so we can show you all the different regulations and things that we put in there. And one of them usually states for filming is that you will not use the National Park Service arrowhead or film or photograph any of the National Park Service employees.
Anybody else have any other questions for Ken? I don't see anything coming in. So, how many yearly permits?
It all depends, I guess, because this year was bad, as you can imagine. Trying to think, this year we had probably 100, and that includes all the commercial use authorizations and the special park uses. Probably upwards to 250 in a good year is average that we write. Actually, that probably doesn't include all the ones where, like, if you have Topanga Banjo Photo Contest, that'll give us 50 vendors right there. So it could go up to over 300 if we include those as well. Those are kind of easy for us. We just, since they're selling like food or something or whatever, it's very easy for us to kind of write those permits. So we get $50 cost recovery for those. It takes time for us to get signatures back and forth, but they're usually pretty easy to write.
Somebody asked about taking photos from their own
property. Yeah, most of what we call, like, if you want to fly a drone can fly over our property, and that's not a violation. It's launching and flying from our property. So we have that issue with neighbors on their property flying over Rancho Sierra Vista. And so that's not quite a violation unless we get them on a different violation, such as harassing people, harassing wildlife, because they did not launch off our property. So I would say the same for photography. You did not photograph from our property doing commercial business. So let's say you're doing photography of a family with the backdrop of the park, but they're standing and you're standing on your own private property, then you would not need a permit. It's kind of where you are.
Just to be clear, I know that people can fly planes in a certain area at Paramount Ranch. And I thought for a short period of time that they could fly a drone in that specific area. Is that not true anymore?
That is true, but no one has ever asked to do filming in that area. So most people want to do filming in other areas with the drone, and we say no.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ken. I learned a few.
Yeah, maybe someone learned something.
So thank you very much for taking time to talk to us about the permit process and what's all involved with it and the fees. And I know that that is a great refresher for me, and it will help volunteers in the future when they get questions about what needs to have a permit, what doesn't, what are the fees, and things like that. So thank you so much.
And sorry it didn't work out. I forgot to show. If you go to nps.gov/SAMO, our main webpage, you scroll all the way down at the bottom. I urge everyone to just go look, and it says, "Do I need a permit?" And it has a picture of our chapel on there. Just click on that, and then what pops up next are the different categories for permits, such as commercial use authorizations, special events, right-of-ways, things like that. And you can see the application there. You can see where pay.gov takes you to, what the insurance needs are, and we kind of lay it all out there for the applicant.
And I do see here, Sandy, that you wrote that you don't have that many types of activities at Cabrillo, but you might want to ask Cabrillo what their rules and regulations are as far as permits and things like that. So.
Well, because we're such a smaller park, what we have quite a few weddings. We have commercials filmed, especially on the road that goes down to the tide pools. Car companies seem to like to show their cars with the ocean in the background going down that hill. And then we have a lot of re-enlistments in the military, where, you know, some sub-organization of the Navy will come out and, you know, stand around while one of their members is sworn in for another 4 years.
But you're on a military base, so I wonder if do they need permits to do that?
Well, I don't know whether we charge them.
Yeah.
But we ask, you know, that they talk to the permitting folks, because they can't have a sound system. They can't bring in chairs. They have to be aware that even if they're out at the statue, which is a place that they really like to do it, they're not going to be able to close that off from the public while they're doing it. So, you know, if it's 15 people standing around in a little clump, it's not a big deal. But when they talk about maybe they're going to have 65, then we're into the, well, let's think about that.
Yeah, the park has to set limits on everything that they do, and we allow 5-minute holds at Paramount Ranch to hold people back, visitors back while they get the shot. But we're always available if a smaller park has a question. Not that we can answer everything, but when we have a question, we go to the bigger parks like Golden Gate and fire questions off to them, since they do a lot more permits than we do.
So if the Samo Fund, which is your supporting organization, if they wanted to hold an event in the park, they need to get a permit, right?
Nonprofits they don't need a CUA, a commercial use authorization, but usually under a large event, it's hard to pull it off without assistance from other people sometimes, like us. Like if they want to do something at the visitor center, we might need to keep that open. And so it's up to our discretion of the superintendent whether or not we write a permit to use as documentation purposes, just to have things down in writing. So we've done some small stuff without permits and some big stuff with permits. And it would be a no charge permit.
I think that pretty much follows what we do too also.
Yeah, so under a special use permit, we don't have to charge for cost recovery, so we can waive the permit. But if they're doing some things that we don't really care for in the Park Service is raffles and silent auctions, because it's a form of gambling. And so if there's any type of gain that way or somehow, sometimes we might have to do a commercial use authorization. So there's a lot of gray areas and sticky areas that sometimes we have to really think about on how to handle it, but make it right. Bingo. I see Ralph saying bingo. So if they're doing bingo and if there's something that they're gaining afterwards where they actually paid money for bingo, that would be a game of chance, and that would be considered gambling, which is a prohibited activity. So we normally would not allow that. So if you want to play bingo, then have the participants not get charged. And that would be non-gambling, I believe, because you're not wagering anything.
Greg did ask, what if we're offered a tip or gift? And I said that we can't, as federal employees and as volunteers, you're considered an employee. We can't take gifts or tips for the work that we do. However, if somebody wants to pay you, what I've often done is said, you know, if you go into the visitor center, there's a donation box and you're more than welcome to put the money in the donation box or something like that. But we are not legally allowed to take tips or gifts.
It becomes very dangerous as a monitor to accept gifts midway through while we're monitoring, or food or anything from them, because it could be seen as they're trying to buy us off so they can get around some of the regulations or rules that we impose on them in the permit. So we try to accept nothing from them during that whole time. Except thanks, that's all we'll accept.
Yeah. Carrie, I see your comment about taking it and then putting it in the donation box. It can be very difficult to say, no, I can't take it. There was one time, not as a Park Service person, but as I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I helped somebody out and they wanted to give me money, and I said I can't take it, and they got really disgruntled with me, and they like put it like in my hand and then just walked away. And so I made a donation somewhere, but with it, but yeah, as long as people know that you're not taking it and that you're putting it in the donation, or you ask them to put it in the donation box, that's great. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Ken, for your time.
Sure.
A lot of great information.
I hope we don't have to give back our Backbone Trail t-shirts that we accepted after the trail.
No. No, no.
I'm just kidding. Thank you, Ken. This was great.
All right. Thanks for putting through all of this. That's not the most exciting topic.
That's great.
Great.
Oh, I see y'all later today in like a few minutes or so, maybe.
Oh yeah, 2 o'clock. Gotta get ready for that.
Yeah, okay. I'll be there.
All right, we'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Thanks, Ken.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.